at this point in time, and generally since COVID, when the inflationary pressure started to rise and surprise market expectations, including the central banks, the underlying key component in the global economy, which is not only driving the economic but also potentially the geopolitical environment, is how the Fed manages the economy, the inflationary outlook, given its dual mandate. So whether the Fed does 25, 50, 75, not at all, how it manages expectations, how it guides markets, how it gets it wrong is quite significant, and especially when we are at a very delicate point in the U.S. economic cycle. Some people believe we're heading into a recession, some people believe less so. So I think it has to be, at this point in time, at the core of every discussion.
Are we being too blunt by just focusing on that one measure rather than thinking about the vast amount of liquidity in the system, the vast amount of excess reserves that the banks have compared to they had, let's say, before Lehman's? We have enormous flows and liquidity in the system, which actually may be as important, if not more important, than the actual interest rate itself.
Hugely important, and I don't disagree with that at all. However, in terms of the interest rate, it's not just about the actual interest rate itself. It's about the direction, about the credibility, about the confidence that the Federal Reserve, the FOMC, shows in terms of the U.S. economy. And also it will drive the broader sentiment and underlying drivers around the world for the other major central banks.
You're sounding on Mohamed Al-Arian, and this is exactly his point too. It helps the fixed income markets calibrate what's coming down the pipe from the Fed, knowing what the first rate cut looks like. In terms of the markets and what technology has done with the information, there has been a wobble in technology universe, concerned about the state of the economy, that simply they cannot grow as rapidly if the economy is in slowdown. This is the opposite of what we've been talking about for years, where the subscription revenues protected the technology names. Is this time different because it's AI and it's so expensive to try and build out this type of infrastructure that an economic slowdown does matter for technology?
Well, the thing is, let's see what type of economic slowdown, because there's been a lot of rise and concerns about a U.S. economy moving into a recession. Now that the Fed is starting to cut rates, historically that has led to a recession. So we adjusted our probability of a U.S. recession back in June. From a mild 25% probability to a relatively contained 30% probability. So no big, shocking increase in the probability. And so far, we're still sticking with that, because if we look at the unemployment rate, which has risen from the 3.4s, 3.7s to 4.3s, 4.2s, the underlying components are still resilient. The level of manufacturing is only down 0.3% from its peak. Yes, information services is off. Yes, temporary help services is off. But manufacturing, residential construction, they're all quite stable. So we're not particularly concerned that we're heading into a U.S. recession.